Solving Linear Systems, non-equations. This is Unit 4, Section 5. So, there are 3 sections to this one. So we'll start with the first one, solving nonlinear systems by graphing. So these are fairly simple. You notice we have a quadratic, the blue line, and the linear is the red line. So all you're doing here to solve this system is find where they intersect. So we have 2 intersections on here, and maybe. So if you notice on here, our intersections would be this point right there and this point right there. So our answers that we're actually going to write are the 2 points, the xy for each one of these. So this first one down here is 0, -2. And the second one on the right is 4, 2. And that's all we're doing on these. So you just find where they intersect, write the 2 points, and you're done. Same thing on number 2. I intersect right here and down here. So my first point, I'm just going to do left to right. So the left one is -4, -4. And the right one is 0, 0. And I'm done. So for graphing, it's very quick, very easy. Find where they intersect, write the points, and you're done. Alright, the next one, solving nonlinear systems by substitution. Okay, so if you notice, on both of these, they say y equals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this second one right here and replace it for this y on the first one. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite that. So we will have on the left, instead of this y right here, I'm going to write x minus 2 equals, and then I write this quadratic right here, x squared minus 5x plus 6. And now I want to get everything on the right side, so I'm going to add 2 to both sides and subtract x from both sides. So these all go away on the left, and I'm left on the left side. Well, I've left a lot. On the left side of the equation, I have 0 left, or 0 remaining, because there's nothing there. And this gets brought down. I didn't change that one. -5 minus 1 is -6. 6 plus 2 is 8. And now that equals 0, I can factor, or attempt to factor. You can either factor or quadratic formula. Either one is fine. I will say that these all should be able to be factored. So if you remember factoring, we do first times last, so we get 8. And I know I'm going to have 2 parentheses. Okay. And whatever is here, so since it's only 1x, I'm going to put 1x in each parenthesis. If it was a different number like 2 or 3, I would do that. Okay. Now I want 2 numbers. My 2 numbers multiply to 8. So they multiply to 8 and they add to -6. Okay, so multiply to 8, add to -6, I would have -4 and -2. Because -4 times -2 is a positive 8. -4 minus 2 is -6. Alright, so once we have our parentheses, our last step, since we are solving, we aren't factoring. We're just using factoring to get to the solution. I'm going to draw a line down the middle, and I'm going to set each of these equal to 0 and solve for x. Or if you want to do the shortcut, if you remember that, that's fine too. So I solve for x, so I have x equals 4 on that one, and x is going to equal 2 on this one. Now I have two x's, but if you remember on the first two, we had 2 points that were x, y. So I have to take these numbers and plug them in to one of these equations at the top. Now, just because it's easier, I'm going to plug them both into this second equation. So y equals x minus 2. So I'm going to use a 4 and a 2 and get my y's for each one. So in the first one, I have y equals x is now 4 minus 2. That gives me 2. So that answer, since this is x, I would have 4 comma 2. And for my second one, I would do y equals, and then I would use the second x as 2 minus 2. That gives me 0. And since this is x again, I would have 2 comma 0. So my two answers would be 4, 2, 2, 0. So hopefully that didn't seem like a lot. You just pretty much set them equal to each other, moved everything to the right, factor, plug in the x's, and you're done. So let's do that one more time over here and do the same thing. I'm going to take this part and replace it with this y. So I have x plus 1 equals, then I write this whole thing right here, 2x squared plus 4x minus 1. Move everything to the right side. So minus 1 and minus x. Now I have 0 equals 2x squared. 4 minus 1 is 3x, and then negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. Okay, now I can factor. So I have first times last is negative 4. I know I'm going to have 2 parentheses, because I always will. That's the whole point of factoring. And look, this one's a little different, so now I have 2x. So I'm going to write 2x in the front of each one. And now I need two numbers that multiply to negative 4, but then add also to positive 3. And of course, that would be 4 times negative 1 is negative 4, and 4 minus 1 is positive 3. Okay, now I do the same thing that I did a minute ago. I'm going to split these up, set them each equal to 0, or if you want to use the shortcut from earlier, you can. And I solve for x this way. So here, negative 4 divided by 2, x equals negative 2. And then on the right, add 1, divide by 2, so x equals 1/2. Okay, now we have to plug those in. And remember, you can plug them into the top or bottom equation, but the way these are written, the bottom one is always easier because you're just adding 1 to whatever your x is. So I'm going to go ahead and use that one. So we have y equals x plus 1. So I'm going to use the first x we got was negative 2 down here. So I have y equals negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. So because this was x, my answer is negative 2 comma negative 1. So that's one answer right there. Then I do the same thing. Y equals x is now 1/2. 1/2 plus 1. Well, you got to change the 1 to a fraction. And I want the denominator, the bottom, to be 2 because my 1/2 is 2. So I'm going to have 1/2 plus If I do 2 divided by 2, that would still equal 1. So my number doesn't change. And therefore I get y equal, well, let me write it on over here. So I add the top numbers, 3, leave the bottom alone, 2. Or if you can just tell from this one that 1 plus half is 3 halves, that's fine. Alright, so I have an x is 1 half. So my answer is 1 half, comma, 3 halves. Or I should say my second answer. And those are my 2 answers for that one. Alright, so that's substitution. The last one is elimination. Okay, so this one is kind of the same idea as far as you're going to end up getting one equation, factoring, and plugging the x's in to get y. So same kind of thing, you just go at it a different way, because if you notice, we have 2 x squareds, whereas before we did not have that. So if you have real quick, let me go back. So if you notice on here, I have an x squared, and I have an x. Because of that, I have to use substitution. You really couldn't do elimination on this one. But then on here, I guess you probably could, in a way. But on this one, because I have an x squared and an x squared, I have to use elimination. There's really not much of a choice, which is fine. Elimination is, again, in my opinion, has always been a little simpler and faster than substitution. So let's go ahead and get to it. So for elimination, the first thing you want to do is decide if you want to make the top one negative, the top equation, or the bottom equation negative. In other words, do you want to flip the signs of the top equation or flip the signs of the bottom? Now, just for me on a personal note, when I do this, I always change the sign of the lower x squared. Reason being is that way you will always have a positive x squared, because if you do end up with a negative x squared, then you have to flip the signs again anyways before you factor. So that's just saving you one step. So always flip the lower x squared equation and you'll always be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take this whole thing, and really what I'm doing is I'm multiplying by -1 for each number. But the short explanation is I'm just changing the signs of everything in the second equation. So when I write this, the first one did not change. So I write the first equation just the same. And the second one, I would have -y. 2x squared is minus 2x squared. Plus x is minus x, and minus 3 is now plus 3. And then I simply add everything here. Notice when I do that, my y minus y is 0. That's what I want. And then everything else will work out. So 3 minus 2 is 1x squared. 4x minus 1x is 3x. And -1 plus 3, or 3 minus 1, is just 2. Okay. Now this looks very similar to what we just had, so I'm going to do the same thing. I factor. So first times last is 2. I know I'm going to have 2 parentheses, so I go ahead and write that. My first term is just 1x, so I'm going to write that in both. Well, it's x squared, but we don't get the square. Because, I mean, it's like we have 2 x's, but we're splitting them up between 2 parentheses. That's why there's only 1 in each one. And I need 2 numbers that multiply to 2, add to 3, which of course would be 2 and 1. Those are the only 2 numbers I have to choose from. And then just like before, I solve each one for x. Or if you want to use the shortcut, you can. So x is -2, x is -1, and just like before, I have to plug these in to one of the equations and solve for y. Now, it doesn't matter which one you plug it into, because just like before, it doesn't matter. You can do either one. Just in my opinion, the easier one would always be the lower x squared, just because then you'll have a little bit smaller numbers, and it won't be as bad, you know. Because the larger the number, of course, the more difficult it is by nature. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it into the top equation. So my top equation is y equals 2. Now instead of x, I'm going to go ahead and use this first one, negative 2. So I have negative 2 squared plus x is negative 2 minus 3. Okay, so I have y equals 2 times negative 2 squared is 4. If I do plus a minus, it's the same thing as minus 2 minus 3. Then I have 4 times 2 is 8, minus 2 minus 3. So 8 minus 2 is 6, minus 3 is 3, and that's my y. So y equals 3. My x was the negative 2, so this answer is negative 2, comma 3. And then I do the same thing with the other one, the negative 1. So y equals 2, negative 1 squared plus negative 1 minus 3. I get y equals 2 times negative 1 squared is just 1, plus negative 1 is minus 1, minus 3. And then, of course, 2 times 1 is 2, minus 1 minus 3. You get negative 2. So this answer is going to be negative 1, comma negative 2. So I have negative 2, 3, and negative 1, negative 2. Those are my two answers, and I'm done. So it might seem like a lot, but it's really not too difficult. It's just practice will make it a little faster. Alright, on to the last question. I'm going to start the same way. I'm going to change the sign of the smaller x squared. So which of course in this case is 2. And I'm going to rewrite them. So I have the top one is y equals 5x squared plus x minus 5. And then the bottom one just changes signs, so negative y equals minus 2x squared minus 6x minus 7. And then I add all the numbers. Y minus y is 0. 5 minus 2 is 3x squared. 1x minus 6x is minus 5x. And negative 5 minus 7 is negative 12. From there, I start factoring. I do first times last. So now we know we're going to have two parentheses, like always. My first x squared is, or my only x squared is 3x. So I write 3x in each one. And now I need two numbers that multiply to negative 36, add to negative 5. In this case, it'd be negative 9 plus 4. Okay. Now I split this up and solve each one for x. And again, if you know the shortcut, use it if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and just show this work just for people that need it. So 3x equals 9. (3x) equals negative 4. Divide by 3 on both of these. And so on the left side, 9 over 3 is just 3. And on the right, you cannot reduce that. So I get negative 4/3. Now I have to plug both of these in. And again, I would go ahead and just use the smaller x squared. It's just, again, smaller numbers. So I have y equals, so our first x is 3. I'm going to plug that in. So I have 2 times 3 squared plus 6 times 3. plus 7. Okay, that gives me 2 times 3 squared is 9. 6 times 3 is 18 plus 7. So I have y equals 2 times 9 is 18 plus 18 plus 7. 18 and 18 is 36 plus 7 gives me 43. So for this answer, our x was 3 and the y we got was 43. So that's one answer. And now we have the dreaded fraction. I know. I try to avoid fractions as much as possible. It's just very difficult sometimes. So we have negative 4 thirds squared plus 6 times negative 4 thirds plus 7. So y equals 2 times, that would be 16 over 9. This one is 6 times negative 4 is negative 24, and divided by 3 is negative 8 plus 7. Okay, so here 2 times 16 is 32. And because I can't make any of these divided by 9, or I can't divide that fraction, I'm going to have to make these two numbers over 9. So I do that by multiplying them by 9 and just putting them over 9. So 8 times 9 is 72 over 9. And then 7 times 9 is 63 over 9. Okay, now since they're all over 9, I can now subtract and then add these numbers. So 32 minus 72, of course, is negative 40 over 9 plus 63, and that should give us 23 over 9. So that wasn't too bad. So our x on this one was negative 4 thirds, comma, and our y we got was 23 over 9. And that would be our second answer. And that's how you eliminate. So that's it for today. Hopefully you will be practicing to get better at this stuff, because they are very similar, but they involve a little bit different things. So be sure to practice.